Hi, this is chapter 4 of a comprehensive prophetic manual, and this chapter is called Can All Christians Be Prophetic? And this is going to be part of a playlist on my YouTube channel that you can look on the playlist. You can watch the video part 1 to part 2, part 3, and this one, part 4. So, this chapter title is called Can All Christians Be Prophetic? Jesus shared very convincingly that he was the shepherd of the sheep. He said in that parable that uh, that uh, that he is the shepherd, and his sheep hear his voice, and he calls them out by name, and they follow him. He said that he's the door. It's important for you to understand that if you're a sheep of Jesus, you should have the ability to hear Jesus speak. Now, I grew up as a Baptist. I grew up in a conservative Baptist church, and my family didn't believe in the gifts of the Spirit and prophecy and things like that. I was too young to understand the stories at the table when we used to have Christian friends around for lunch and dinner. I didn't understand all the Pentecostal bashing that they used to do, but I certainly didn't know there was a gift called personal prophecy. I'd heard of clairvoyance, and um, at the age of 18, my brother got, when my brother was young, he got a clairvoyant, spoke to someone in his workplace. They got a reading of a clairvoyant, and the clairvoyant said, "You've got a worker at your workplace that's going to become very rich and successful in business." And the person came home to Rodney, came to his workplace and said to him, "My psychic told me that you're going to be really successful." So that really encouraged my brother. So I knew about that story. But I used to drive taxis, and for years I'd been hearing Jesus speak. And in my taxis, Jesus just used to give me a message for a person, because I talk back and forth to Jesus all the time. He just used to give me a message for my taxi clients. And I remember one time I was in a taxi and had this guy uh, in my passenger seat, and I asked him, "Do you speak to your brother?" And he says, "No, my brother's dead to me." And I said, "Well, he soon is going to be dead to you, so it's about time you speak to him." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Your brother's dying of cancer, and he wants to say goodbye to you before he dies. He wants to make peace with you, and he's asked your mother, but your mother respects it. She doesn't want to give your number out. And so your brother's a Christian. He's been praying to Jesus for him to open up a way so he can get in touch with you. And it seems that Jesus has told me to tell you that your brother's dying of cancer. And could you get in touch with him, ring your mother and get in touch with him and go and see him, because he wants to make peace with you before he dies." The guy just broke down in tears, and he 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 it was way before cell phones. It was 30 years ago, and he was 25 years ago at least. He was overcome and got out of the taxi and went and made a phone call. But I used to, I had some girls in my taxi one time, and I said to them, if Jesus was in the taxi and you could ask him questions, what would you ask him? And the three girls started asking questions, and Jesus was started speaking to them and answering the questions. And they were asking questions about all sorts of personal stuff, and Jesus was giving them answers. And I thought it was fun. I thought it was. I've always been a person not lacking conversation. I love strangers, and you had a captive audience in your taxi, and so I was able to lead conversations into the direction about Christian things, and then I'd be able to speak to them on behalf of Jesus. So all Christians, if they can hear from Jesus, I've got a book called How to Hear from God, and I teach you how to hear from God. If you've got the ability to hear from God, you've got the ability to prophesy to people. And some people are really nervous, but if you heard, if you were a friend of a woman, and your daughter went to the same school as the other woman's daughter, and the other woman's daughter was in your house, and you went up to call the girls to dinner, and the other woman's daughter was having a sleepover, and you went up to call your daughter and the other woman's daughter down to dinner, and you walked in when the daughter was saying, "My mum is just so down on herself. She doesn't think she's a good mother, but she's just the best mother in the world. I don't know how my mother could be better. You know, your mother's a great mother, but she's not as loving as my mum. My mum will do anything for me. I wish I could just let her know how happy I am. I wish she'd believe me." And and she walked in just as she's saying that. She can see tears running down the daughter's face. If you were that mother and you're out for coffee, uh, and the mother was saying that she doesn't think she's a good enough mother, wouldn't you share that message that you overheard her daughter saying? Wouldn't you share that she had tears in her eyes and tears are running down her eyes, and be able to express to the mother the thing that upsets your daughter is she's not able to convince you how good you are? Wouldn't you go on from that message from a daughter to say what a great mother she is and how you've observed how good she is? That's what a prophetic word is. It's giving a message of love from someone who loves them to them. It's giving them an encouragement to them. So if so um, Christians can be prophetic if you can hear from God, if you've got the ability, and that's a skill that's learned, and you need to practice that. But if you've got the skill and the ability to hear from God, and we've got the good shepherd parable to assure us that we're sheep and we're meant to be Jesus' sheep and we're meant to hear His voice. Now, if you're a Baptist, you may believe that God doesn't speak anymore, and the gifts of the Spirit are over, and you can't hear God's voice. Many Baptists will say God speaks in the Bible, and they read the Bible, and that's how they hear God speak. I've got a book called 24 Ways to Hear from God, and that book will encourage you at 24 different ways that you can hear from God. So God's always speaking through multiple ways. It just doesn't have to be a still small voice. But Jesus does promise that He'll speak in that still small voice in your mind. And if you can hear from Jesus, it's just, I've heard other people say, you're just the mailman, you're just delivering the mail. The message isn't from you, but you're just delivering the mail of Jesus to people. And so just consider that illustration I shared. If you're the mother of a girl whose daughter was crying and expressing how much she's proud of her mother, wouldn't you pass that message on? And Jesus is just bursting. He's just bursting out of his skin to communicate with his loved ones. He just wants to communicate with the people that he loves. And he's just inviting you to be a vessel and be a person who carries his message to the people that he loves. Um, so all Christians can prophesy. They've simply got to learn how to hear from Jesus and pass his message on.